you nuclear goblins, listen up. My name is the Hootsman, and this wasteland belongs to me. Now, I'm gonna give you to the count of 3 to get your good for nothing godlike asses out of here, or you're gonna taste the power of
First of all, how do I pronounce your name properly? Because I'm terrible with pronunciations.
Oh, that's fine. It's Sozos. So
Sozos. Sozos.
Yeah. Sozos.
Very like Zoso, but the other way around.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Happy coincidence.
First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to be interviewed today. I know that you guys are really busy preparing for your tour and everything, so it's good of you to take the time out.
No, yeah, no problem. We're actually like in between shows now. We have a show that's coming up on the 10th, and we just finished with our American tour. So this is just kind of a little break. So yeah, no problem.
You guys are known for being coming from Scotland. What part of Scotland is generally considered to be like your base?
So in actuality, none of us really are from Scotland, other than Chris, who is like the original mind behind Gloryhammer. So I'm from Cyprus, and the rest of the people are from various parts of the UK. But Gloryhammer is from Dundee, or the Kingdom of Fife. It is like a very different alternate version of that place that we're actually from, but that's what the lore says.
I see. So it's like a mythical place full of dungeons and dragons and mist, where
exactly
you guys all go to when you're like fancy a beer.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Who thought of your pseudonyms? Was it each individual guy who thought them up, or is there some sort of basis for each name?
So as far as I know, everything was like Chris Bose came up with everything, like the names of the characters, and the story is something that was in his mind, something that he wanted to do since, I don't know, 2010, or maybe even earlier than that. So he knew that he had Ailstorm at the time, which was like, pirate metal band.
Yeah.
But he always wanted to also do something with wizards and warriors and like, more medieval type stuff. So Gloryhammer was what he came up with, including the characters and the geographical locations, and also the series of events that all came from the slightly insane but very, very clever mind of Chris Bose.
Very clever guy. He must. I'm assuming he's very into fantasy and things like that because the subject matter of your albums is calling upon ancient mythology, and it comes across as well thought out each time.
Yeah, so it's not like Chris is a fan of fantasy, but what he likes is essentially all those records, power metal records that he loved from the early 2000s, like including Rhapsody, which was like one of the main influences for Gloryhammer. All those um, like big epic stories with dragons and warriors and swords and stuff. He wanted to do something like that, but also put a spin on it so that it's not completely serious, but it still acted like it's taking itself seriously. But like it's everything is tongue in cheek, but it's never you're never going to see like Gloryhammer like winking, or it's like everyone is treating this as like a completely serious story.
Yeah.
Which is I think what sets Gloryhammer apart from like some other like parody metal bands that are like self-aware and also like tongue-in-cheek and winking to the audience.
What would you say are your personal musical influences? Because you've got an incredible kind of voice, and you're obviously well experienced. What were your musical influences as you were developing your talents?
Oh, thank you very much. Actually, I started with guitar. Um, I didn't sing in the beginning, but I was very much into neoclassical metal, as in Yngwie Malmsteen, and then I also got into like Rhapsody of Fire at the time. But then when I started to sing, the first band that like caught my attention and made me want to sing was Blind Guardian.
Yeah.
So I had them playing like all day and singing their songs, which I still think they have an incredible body of work, and that influenced like that was like my baseline. That's what I wanted. I knew I wanted to do going forward. But then I also um, got into bands like Seventh Wonder. Which are very different in terms of like vocal style. They do retain some of those like multi-layered vocal harmonies, but also the lead vocals, which is something that is I think obviously in this album as well. There is some more finesse in how it's handled. So there are some um, like melisma added at the end of phrases. There is some more like vocal acrobatics going on compared to the sheer power of Blind Guardian. And I am also Son Antarctica is like what I would call as like the third influence for me, because that's also something that fits within the framework of multi-layered harmonies, lots of power, but also there's some like really heartfelt and expressive singing in that. So all of those, I'm trying to like emulate essentially my heroes in most of the stuff, and hopefully have something of my own mixed in, because you don't want to be a carbon copy of your influences.
No. We're now looking at 4 albums now, aren't we, on Napalm Records, with each one having its own concept. You go as far as to have different outfits for the live shows and things like that. How long does it take you to sort of just sit down and formulate the next project, and what it's going to sound like, and what you're going to wear, and what the theatrics are going to be on stage? It must be quite an undertaking each time.
It is a big project every time, but I've only been involved with the latest album of Gloryhammer because I am like the vocalist of this one. But I think the way that it works is music comes first. So melodic ideas are already somewhere in our shared folders that we have that everyone has access to, and everyone can add to that. And then either Chris or Mike or like anyone else from the band can interject and say, "Oh, why don't we have this happen in the story? Why don't we have this happen in the story?" There is an like a long view of what the story is going to do and where it's going to go. And that's, as far as I know, that's also like Chris's Chris's invention. But small details can change, and even like larger plot points can change just by someone throwing a joke in the chat and saying, "Wouldn't it be funny if this happened?" And a lot of the times, more than like twice or three times, Chris was like, "Yep, that should happen," and that made it into the album. So it's essentially music comes first. You need to write good songs. Plot comes second. It needs to be like entertaining in a way that's not really like played out or too silly. So there is a fine line to walk there. And then costumes come from the plot. So
Yeah.
we knew that this album was going to be a post-apocalyptic environment. So we wanted to go like with the red band and the power glove thing that I had in the music video. So like small changes in presentation. We don't want it to be like a completely different show with different characters. We want to retain the character of each person. Because they have been going and fans have been expecting the Hoodsman to be like he is, and Sir Policius to be like he is. But you want to make a few changes so that it's not always the same show.
Tell us about this new album, Return to the Kingdom of Fife.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the new album, Return to the Kingdom of Fife.
So sorry, I didn't hear the first part of the question.
I was asking about the new album that's coming out, Return to the Kingdom of Fife.
Yeah.
And tell us a bit about it. What's the sort of general story behind the album?
Oh, okay. So the album begins essentially it's set after the events of the first album of Gloryhammer, where the prince wins and saves the day and lives in a castle with his people, and everyone is happy. But at the end of the events of the third album, Zargothrax, which is like the evil wizard of the story, is being defeated in an alternate dimension. He's being defeated in an alternate dimension, but he sends a message to the past, essentially, to wake up one of his clones that is buried deep within Dundee under the castle. So in the middle of the first song of this album, the clone wakes up and destroys Dundee with a nuclear missile, essentially. That's all shown in our Holy Flaming Hammer of Unholy Cosmic Frost single. And then his son, this is like how Angus MacFive the First dies, and his son, Angus MacFive the Second, which is who I am like playing the character of in the rest of the album, is saved by magical spells. It's a bit hand waved how he's saved, but he's saved and he grows up vowing to get his revenge over the death of like essentially everyone. And Dundee is now a nuclear wasteland. And then 20 years after, when Angus MacFive II is grown, he's trying to essentially stop the clone of Zargothrax from waking up the original Zargothrax, which at the end of the first album is trapped into a lake of liquid ice. It's a bit like convoluted, but the broad strokes is the album starts with everyone essentially losing and all of Dundee being turned into a nuclear wasteland. And then what follows is a quest of the hero to gather his comrades from that are the same as the previous albums, but the this universe's equivalents, the Hootsman in several issues, and Ralathor, and then fight to stop the clone of Zargothrax from waking up the original Zargothrax. They fail at the last song, and the original Zargothrax wakes up, and so there is about like it's almost the moment that everyone is going to get into the fight when the Starlords of Eternity descend from the heavens and stop everyone, and they say, "Oh, this shouldn't happen," and they kill everyone, and they accept Prince Angus, and then Prince Angus joins them, and essentially what's being set up at the end of the album is Prince Angus II is going to have adventures in the far reaches of the galaxy, which could mean anything.
Mm.
But yes, that is what the fourth album is about. It's building up on an already very convoluted and purposefully so story, with a lot of melodic ideas and also plot ideas, being a throwback to previous events. But yes, that's what that is about.
Musically, how is this album different musically from Legends of the Galactic Terror Vortex?
I would say that the it is still distinctly very Gloryhammer in sound. But what's different now is we have more of Michael, which is the current Zargothrax, being contributing to songwriting. So we have more hands essentially on the songwriting front, which I would say has resulted in an album that feels like it's one of those albums that you don't feel like the songs blend into one another. Like each song has a very distinct identity that you can definitely, like, if you're talking to someone and you want to explain to them which song you mean without remembering the title, you can say, oh, with 5 words you can definitely point to the right song. Whereas like I feel like lots of times in power metal, because it's so focused on speed and power, a lot of songs are very fast and very powerful, and they kind of blend together into like one big thing. So other than like the variety of the sound, which I think is slightly like I think the album now is currently a bit more varied than the Terror Vortex album. I would say that because of the different vocal style, because my vocals are different than Thomas Winkler's vocals, there is a difference in terms of like vocals. Obviously, it's going to be immediately obvious if you're familiar with the previous 3 albums, but also even when writing melodies, my vocals are taken into account, like how high, how low, and how like agile my voice was taken into account in a lot of these songs, and especially in the Maleficus Geminus, which is the last 12-minute song. That was a much more like open field for me to explore what I can do with my voice. So there are a lot of different like vocal styles that are being essentially demonstrated there.
How did recording go? I mean, was you a lot? Because there's a lot going on your records. I mean, how was it an easy album to record, or were there times when you were just literally pulling your hair
out? So it was we recorded in Bosnia, and we had essentially 2 weeks to record vocals, guitars, and bass. But the big thing is vocals, because the voice can get tired and it needs time to recover. I'm not saying that other instruments don't, but it's guitar wise or bass wise, you can record like a couple of like 2 or 3 songs every day, and you'll be fine. You have enough time to do that for a 10 or 11 song album. but vocal wise, because the album is very demanding, and also most of the backing vocals that you hear, if it's not like a choir, it's like me
Yeah.
singing higher or lower parts. So there was like a lot of work to be done to be able to cover all those vocals. Um, but I think at the end we had like a day to spare, so it wasn't too much of a last minute thing. So it was fine, but there was like long, like 7 or 8 hour days where I had to record vocals in the morning for a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours, and then come back in the afternoon and do backing vocals or do like a different song. And then there were days where my voice needed to rest, so I couldn't like record vocals. Otherwise, the
Yeah.
next day would have been worse. But it turned out to be just fine.
How do you look after your voice? Have you got any tips for vocalists out there on looking after their vocals?
Oh, that's a biggie. So this applies to both like recording sessions and also being on tour. But what I do, and it's working so far, is um, obviously being hydrated is like very very important. Um, I do not drink. I avoid eating at least an hour before recording or before singing, um, and warming up and also warming down after the show or after the recording session are very important, because you want to reset your vocal cords and your vocal tract to be as close to when it's being like restful. Um, so what I do for warming up and warming down is the same exercises. There you can essentially get a glass of water and a straw, and then submerge the straw like an inch into the glass, and then blow bubbles. And that's like a very very simple. And there's a couple of variations in that exercise, but doing that with its variations. Like half an hour before the show and then half an hour after the show seems to keep my voice in very good shape. And I would suggest everyone that's watching or like reading this to give it a try. Straw exercises for vocal warm-ups, very very effective for me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that advice. That's really, really useful. Um, you've just announced that the live dates coming up
Mm-hmm.
under the title "Glory and the Beast," which is a brilliant title. With I mean the lineup, Beast in Black as well, and the Wonderful Brothers of Metal. That is one hell of a lineup, and there's going to be some very sore necks and some sore vocals. Tell us a quick rundown of where you're playing roughly, and what fans can expect on this live show.
So it's pretty early for the finer details, because I was in the like Jim, the hoodsman, is the one that's like in charge of all the logistics behind our live shows. But essentially, we are super super excited to be touring with Beast in Black. Personally, I have been a big fan of Yanis, their vocalist, for like more than a decade, because Yanis is Greek. I'm from Cyprus. I speak Greek. Like he was a big um, like figure for me growing up, because I could see him rise essentially from a YouTube like vocalist to being in War Drum, which was like an amazing band from Greece, and then getting in Beast in Black, and essentially they're unstoppable now. And being able to tour with Beast in Black is just incredible. And also Brothers of Metal, we toured with them last September in the UK, and I've never met a happier. Yeah, I've never met a happier bunch of people. They're like the most wholesome group of people I've ever met. And I'm really excited to see them again. I've made good friends with them. But yeah, we are essentially touring Europe, and there are some very, very big stages. We are really excited to get going. We are trying to see how we can fit all the production in one stage, because Beast in Black have like very big things on stage, like in the vein of the Ailstorm duck, essentially, but like Beast in Black style. And we also have some ideas on how we'll change the stage to reflect the new album. So this is kind of the stage where we're like, we're trying to figure everything out, where we can be double headliner, and we want that to feel as a double headliner.
So looking forward to it. It's going to be one hell of a tour. Before I let you go, is there anything you want to say to your many, many fans out there in Fife and everywhere else across the known and unknown kingdoms?
Oh, I would like to thank everyone very much for the very positive feedback we got on the new album, and we hope to see everyone in the next months. We have a short two-week tour, essentially, in Europe, where we'll be playing some festivals and some club shows. And of course the big one in January. So we are very, very excited to see everyone there. And thank you to everyone that gave the album a chance and like talked to us, commented. We're really, really grateful.
Thank you so much for your time.
No worries.
Good luck with the album and good luck with the tour.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time as well.
Bye-bye. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Welcome, my
all the night.